The wind carried salt through the narrow alleys of the fishing village, where the ocean was never out of sight and the sky always smelled like mist. Anna arrived just before sunset. The bus that brought her from the city had left without a sound, leaving her and her old canvas backpack in a place where time moved differently. The villagers didn't use phones much. Most of their houses were made of weathered stone, and the cafe served tea in chipped mugs. Children played with wooden toys, and boats were pulled in by hand. But Anna had not come for the charm. She had come because of something she read in a handwritten journal found in the back of her university's marine library. The journal had no author, just page after page of observations, ocean currents, unusual animal behavior, wind patterns, and then one line, circled in pencil. The island is expected to rise again in the year 2023. She didn't believe it at first. There was no record of such an island, no satellite data, no charts. But curiosity pulled her in. It was the kind of mystery that didn't ask for answers, it asked for presence. So here she was, in a village that most maps didn't name, asking the man who sold dried fish if he had heard of the island. He looked at her quietly, then poured her a cup of tea without saying a word. But a few minutes later, as if choosing carefully, he nodded toward the sea. "You're early," he said. "It comes when the tide is right. 7 years, always 7. Anna leaned in. "You've seen it?" "Not me, but my father and his father before him." She had expected laughter or a story made up for tourists, but there was none of that here. The way the villagers spoke of it was not with excitement, but the calm of something accepted, something known. That night she stayed in a room above the cafe, her notebook open on the windowsill. Outside, the ocean glowed faintly under the half-moon. She could hear it breathe, in and out, in and out. And just before she fell asleep, she imagined it, a piece of land that vanished and returned as if breathing too, keeping time not with clocks, but with tides and silence.
The morning fog was thicker than Anna expected. It curled over the rooftops and softened the edge of the sea, as if the world itself was still deciding what to reveal. She pulled on a jacket, grabbed her notebook, and walked down to the dock, where a few fishing boats were already returning with their early catch. She hadn't told anyone her real reason for coming. The villagers had their beliefs, and she had her training. As a marine researcher, Anna had studied wave patterns, undersea ridges, and the strange illusions caused by atmospheric conditions. Islands don't just appear and disappear, unless, of course, they were never really islands to begin with. Still, something about the calmness of the people here unsettled her. They weren't interested in explanations. They were waiting. She met Tomas, a younger fisherman with sun-darkened skin and quiet eyes. He agreed to take her out on his boat. "Not close," he said, "but far enough to see if it comes." They left the dock just after noon, passing cliffs streaked with bird droppings and shallow water that glimmered with silver fish. The sea was smooth that day, unusually so. As they reached a wide stretch of open water, Tomas stopped the boat and cut the motor. Silence fell like a curtain. And then, slowly, the fog lifted. Anna's breath caught. On the horizon, barely visible at first, was a shape.
At first she thought it was a shadow or a trick of the light, but as the sky cleared, it grew sharper. Land where there should be none. A low, flat island, covered in short grass and dotted with what looked like black rocks or broken pillars. "It's there," she whispered. Tomas nodded but said nothing. They didn't go closer. Something in the air had shifted. Even the gulls were quiet. Anna opened her notebook and began to sketch what she saw. The shoreline of the island was jagged, like it had been broken off from something larger. No trees, no buildings, just the stones, arranged in ways that almost looked like ruins. Then movement. A bird, no, not a bird, something larger flew across the island's edge and disappeared behind a slope. Anna squinted, unsure. There was no wind, yet a strange hum touched her ears. Not sound exactly, more like pressure, like a whisper behind glass. She looked to Tomas, but he was already starting the engine. "It's not safe," he said quietly. "Why?" she asked. "It leaves, and it doesn't like being watched." Back in the village, Anna made notes. Location, appearance, possible explanations. A mirage caused by heat? A sandbank exposed by rare tidal forces? But none of those could explain what she felt, the sense of being noticed. That night, the island was gone again. The following day brought a sky so blue it felt like glass. Anna stood on a cliff overlooking the sea, where the horizon stretched endlessly, empty once more. The island had vanished as suddenly as it came, but something about it lingered in her mind, like a half-remembered dream. She met with Tomas again that morning, hoping to go back out, but he refused. "Once is enough," he said. "Twice means you're part of it." Instead, Anna walked along the shoreline with her recorder and camera, taking notes and scanning the sea. She asked the villagers if they remembered the last appearance of the island. An old woman told her it came with strange tides. A boy said his uncle once saw animals there that had no names. A man whispered about his grandfather who went there and came back speaking a language no one understood. None of it made sense, and yet none of it felt like lies. Later that week, a group of scientists from a university on the mainland arrived. Anna hadn't contacted them, but word had spread, something had been seen, and the data was too thin to ignore. They brought sonar equipment, satellite tracking tools, and several drones. Anna joined them as they chartered a larger boat and returned to the spot she and Tomas had visited. They scanned the area for seafloor changes, took water samples, and launched a drone over the general location. But the drone's camera showed only ocean. Then, as they reviewed the footage, someone noticed something odd. A frame, just one frame, showed what appeared to be dry land, less than a second long. Then, gone. They ran tests again and again. No result. That night, Anna couldn't sleep. Her thoughts returned to the stones she had seen on the island. Those dark objects scattered across the island. They looked like ruins, columns, shrines. She remembered the strange pressure in her ears, the sensation that the island was not just a place, but something watching back. Unable to rest, she returned to her notes. In one entry, she'd written about the monument near the island's center, something she barely glimpsed. It had shape, structure, symmetry. She tried sketching it again from memory. A tall object, narrow at the base, widening like a bell, with symbols etched into its surface. What kind of island has monuments? The next morning she went to the village elder, an old man who rarely spoke. When she showed him the sketch, his eyes darkened. He opened a drawer and took out a faded cloth. Printed on it was a near-identical shape. "It watches the sea," he said. "It chooses who remembers." Anna asked what he meant, but he wouldn't say more. The next day he was gone, his house locked, no one knowing where he'd gone, or pretending not to. The island did not return that week. The sea returned to normal. But Anna was not the same.
The mainland scientists left 2 days later, frustrated by the lack of repeatable data. Without proof, the university could not support further exploration. Satellites showed nothing, sonar scans returned nothing, and so interest faded. But Anna remained. She rented a small cabin near the cliffs, determined to stay until the next full moon, something the village elder had mentioned before disappearing. "When the moon is full and the sea is still," he had said, "you might see what others miss." In the quiet hours of dawn, Anna reread centuries-old maps of the region. Most showed a smooth coastline, but one, drawn by a Spanish navigator in the early 1600s, marked a landmass barely the size of a thumbnail just off the coast, labeled Isla Fantasma, the Phantom Island. It was mentioned nowhere else. Could this be the same island? As the moon grew fuller, Anna began noticing strange things. Her compass, once reliable, twitched slightly whenever she walked the beach after dusk. Birds flew in circles over a certain part of the sea, then vanished without a sound. Local dogs refused to walk beyond a stretch of sand now known as La Lengua, or the tongue, for its long curved shape pointing straight to where the island had appeared. One night, Anna awoke to a faint humming. It wasn't mechanical, more like the distant vibration of a large shell. She stepped outside and saw far off a shimmer on the water. Grabbing her camera, she ran to the cliff edge. There it was again, the island. Smaller this time, closer. She held her breath, zoomed in, and took photo after photo. A tall structure stood in the middle, more visible now, and beneath it, strange patterns in the earth, like spirals carved by hand. Then the hum stopped. She blinked. The island was gone. But her camera still clicked. She looked down. Every frame was blank. The next day, she tried to develop the images using a thermal filter. One photo showed something, the faint outline of a pathway leading from the shore into the center of the island. It looked artificial, planned, like the remains of a lost civilization. She called a contact in the anthropology department at a nearby university. He was skeptical, but intrigued. "You know, there's a legend in that region, a people who worshipped the sea itself. They built temples on islands no one could find again. Some say those islands move." She laughed, but not fully. The way the island vanished, without a splash, without movement, it hadn't sunk. It had left. Anna stopped laughing. What if the island wasn't land at all? Anna spent the following days buried in research. If the island wasn't truly land, if it had movement or will,
Then it challenged more than cartography. It crossed into the realm of biological mystery. Were there creatures large enough to appear as islands? Historical texts from Polynesian and Nordic traditions both hinted at such beings. Some were worshipped, others feared. Names like Aspidokilone and Nagara floated across her notes. Still, she kept returning to that structure, the bell-shaped monument. What was its purpose? A signal? A shrine? A warning? At low tide one morning, Anna noticed something strange. The water had receded unusually far, exposing part of the seabed never seen before. She walked across the damp sand, heart thudding, as she reached a ridge made of smooth black stone, barely peeking up above the waterline. It formed a perfect arc. Her fingers brushed the stone. It was warm, unnaturally warm. Later, she sketched the arc and compared it with aerial photos she'd secretly saved. It resembled a scale or a fin. Not rock, not earth. A visiting marine biologist, Dr. Emilio Sanchez, had seen her drawings and raised a theory. "There's no known species that size," he said, frowning. "But if we consider the ocean's depth and how little we've mapped, the idea isn't as impossible as it seems." He mentioned stories from deep-sea submersibles, lights flickering, shadows passing over sensors, anomalies in sonar. Nothing ever confirmed, but always dismissed too easily. Anna pressed him. Could it be a form of symbiosis, an organism large enough to carry sediment, even vegetation? Possibly, but then why surface only every 7 years? That became the central question. Not just what, but why. That night, during another full moon, Anna set up camp along La Lengua again. Clouds rolled in, rain threatened, but she stayed. As midnight neared, the humming returned, louder now, as if the sea itself were vibrating. Anna stood, scanning the horizon. The mist parted, and there it was, the island, fully risen, illuminated by moonlight. It shimmered, as if alive. Anna's hands shook as she recorded. This time, she walked toward it. The shore met the water and continued, solid, not sand. She stepped forward, then again. No sinking, no resistance. She was on it. The ground felt soft, not like earth. It pulsed faintly beneath her boots. She moved cautiously through low, mossy foliage. Insects chirped with sounds she'd never heard before. She passed the dark stone shrines again, though now she wondered if they were not shrines at all, but something organic. Then she reached the monument. Closer now, she saw it was covered in carvings, fluid, swirling shapes, not unlike the patterns found on the back of sea turtles. She touched it gently. A vibration passed through her body. The sky darkened suddenly. Wind surged. The monument glowed for a moment, dimly, then faded. Something was happening. The island began to shift beneath her. She stumbled. From the monument's base, a long, low sound echoed, like a whale's call, mixed with thunder. She turned to run, but behind her, the path was gone.
Anna spun in place, breath catching in her throat. The ground beneath her trembled, not violently, but rhythmically, as if following a slow heartbeat. Around her, the glowing carvings dimmed and pulsed again. The trees, if they were trees, leaned slightly in the same direction, toward the monument. The hum returned, no longer external, but vibrating inside her chest,
a sound she felt more than heard. She stepped back carefully, retracing her path toward the shoreline. But the terrain had changed. The moss-covered ground was softer now, spongier, and the faint outline of the trail had vanished completely. Anna looked up. The sky was clearing, stars blinking through shifting clouds. She checked her watch. It had stopped. Her phone? Dead. No signal. Not even light. She was alone, suspended in time, standing on something that might not even be land. And yet, it wasn't hostile. Despite the mystery, the island felt calm, like a place that didn't want to be found, but didn't mind being visited. Briefly. She sat by the base of the monument, trying to calm her thoughts. She reached into her bag and took out the old navigator's map she had copied, comparing the island's shape to the faded ink lines drawn centuries ago. The resemblance was uncanny. The curve of the beach, the placement of the stone structures, it was all there. Someone had been here before. Not only that, someone had known it would come back. But who? In the distance, a new shape rose. A circle of stones stood in the shallow lagoon just beyond the edge of the main landmass. Inside it, the water shimmered silver blue, unlike the dark waves surrounding the island. The stones looked unnatural, too smooth, too evenly spaced, and in their center something floated. A statue, half submerged but visible, a figure holding what looked like a conch shell, head bowed. It was ancient, covered in marine growth, but unmistakably human in form, or at least humanoid. Anna felt her breath hitch. This place wasn't just a strange island. It was a memory of something built, forgotten, and waiting. But for what? The wind shifted again. The low sound returned, deeper now, like a signal. The ground began to rise beneath her, ever so slightly, tilting toward the sea. The water around the lagoon swirled gently. It was leaving. Anna scrambled toward the edge. The mossy earth turned slick. A narrow channel had formed, a strip of firmer ground leading back toward where the beach had been. She ran. Behind her, the humming grew louder, almost resonant. It wasn't a warning, it was a farewell. She made it just in time, leaping onto the wet shoreline as the island receded, slowly, silently, into the mist. Within moments, it was gone. No splash, no storm, no sign it had ever been there. Except the wet prints on Anna's boots. She sat on the sand, shivering, not from cold, but from awe. What was it? An island made of living matter? A migrating creature mistaken for land? A remnant of a forgotten civilization? The truth was, no one knew. Perhaps no one would. And maybe that was the point. Not all things are meant to be explained. Some are meant to be remembered. Some are meant to be wondered about.
Learning recap. Let's review the key vocabulary, sentence patterns, and questions from Anna's mysterious journey. Key vocabulary from the story. 1. Phenomenon. An unusual or remarkable event or occurrence. For example, the reappearing island is a rare natural phenomenon. 2. Shimmer. To shine with a soft, unsteady light. For example, the surface of the water shimmered under the moonlight. 3. Submerge. To go beneath the surface of water. For example, the statue was half submerged in the lagoon. 4. Vibrate. To move quickly back and forth with small movements. For example, she felt the island vibrate beneath her feet. 5. Civilization. A complex human society with cities, laws, writing, and more. For example, the carvings suggested an ancient civilization once lived here. 6. Compass. A device used to determine direction. For example, her compass began to twitch near the shoreline. 7. Lagoon. A shallow body of water separated from the sea by sand or rocks. For example, a glowing lagoon appeared at the edge of the island. 8. Myth. A traditional story that explains a natural or social phenomenon. For example, some locals believe in the myth of the moving island. 9. Shoreline. The edge of land next to a body of water. For example, she ran back to the shoreline before the island vanished. 10. Explorer. A person who investigates unknown places. For example, Anna was determined to explore the island's secrets. Useful sentence patterns for practice. I couldn't believe what I was seeing. There was no sign it had ever been there. She felt something shift beneath her feet. Could it be a living creature, not land? Some mysteries are not meant to be solved. Comprehension questions. 1. Why did Anna decide to stay after the scientists left? 2. What unusual things did Anna notice before the island appeared again? 3. What was the significance of the old map she found? 4. What did Anna see on the island that made her believe it was not just land? 5. Why did the scientists fail to prove the island's existence? 6. How did Anna feel at the end of the story? 7. What clues suggested that the island might be alive? Open-ended discussion question. If you discovered something that couldn't be explained by modern science, would you try to share it with the world or keep it a mystery? Why?